Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It is May the 11th, 2019. It's about 7:05 p.m. in the evening. And this evening, I wanted to take the opportunity to discuss a very, very important topic. Also, a topic that is of great controversy at the moment due to the way many were exposed to this topic and their negative or otherwise unoptimal experiences with the subject, and that would be ethics. I would like to discuss, first of all, ethics, okay, statistics, all right, or ethics, statistics, justice, and their proper application thereof. There is a very, very large misnomer out there in the independent field as well as the Church of Scientology about ethics and how they should be applied, in which order, the penalties, how they're applied, when and if people's certifications and other things are revoked, etc., all the way down the line. Now, the very odd part about this, ethics, is you'll find everything you need to know about ethics in Introduction to Scientology Ethics. It's a public book. And of course, there are some HCOBs and policy letters written on ethics specifically, but that is for somebody that would be on staff and be working in an ethics capacity. But still, the major data is found here. As you can see, I have the Golden Age of Tech 5 version of Introduction to Scientology Ethics here. So, before I get into that, and I'll read a couple of quotes out of it, is, for one, biggest important factor, and I've said this before about ethics, is under no circumstances whatsoever do you ever enforce ethics. Cannot, and you will not ever enforce ethics. It is impossible. It cannot be done. You can enforce morals on somebody, but that's a different subject. Now, group morals, or what a group has agreed upon to be ethical, yes, and then passed as law, yes, can be enforced on a person. You could drag them off, have them swinging from the gallows, lop their head off, put them in front of a firing squad. But at the end of the day, if that individual in their heart of hearts did not believe what they did was erroneous or wrong, then it wasn't unethical to them. Nothing anyone can do to them is going to make it otherwise. That's why ethics cannot be enforced. And ethics being a person's own internal sense of right and wrong and morality. We're not inherently flawed. We're not inherently sinned. We are all born as good human beings, or at least one would hope. And not being inherently flawed like this, if we're of proper mental capacity, there's not a person alive who does not eventually come to understand what is right and wrong. Now, there's a large variation there, but there has always been a common denominator of what can be considered to be right and wrong. You see a person in pain, if you see her doing something to somebody that causes them pain, grief, emotion, anger, any reasonable human being of the proper mental capacity is going to draw the conclusion that this is incorrect, this is wrong, this is something I shouldn't do to another person, wouldn't want them doing it to me, and vice versa. So therefore, a person will develop an internal compass and sense of what is right and wrong. And yes, granted, there's a large deviation to that, based upon someone's education, where they come from, their culture, their political beliefs, and otherwise their philosophical beliefs as well. That all has a large or a marked effect on their behavior and their ethics. Now, having covered ethics there, and morals, or what a group, or morals, or what a large group of people consider to be ethical, and they usually get codified in a penal code or some kind of legal system, or they're codified this way in some type of legal volume. Most countries do this now. There's some countries that follow, like Islamic countries that follow, Islamic belief system, or Sharia, or these other type of laws. and enforce those, and that's what they generally agree upon to be ethical on a broad scale. Now, within Scientology, of course, here we developed a system of ethics, and ethics were designed to protect the individual. And it says here in the book, if you don't understand ethics, the technology of ethics, then you are responsible for what occurs to you. The individual, you and myself, we are responsible for our own ethics. We are responsible for putting in our own ethics. If it's our own internal sense of moral right and wrong, I have to put that in. I have to put my foot down or say something and say, well, this is incorrect. I don't like this. Hold on a minute here. Tell somebody, you become frustrated inside. You want to, speak out. Well, do so. It's the person's responsibility to do this. To say, hey, look, no, this is incorrect. Here's the references, and provide your proof, state your case, and then, take it from there. But that is our responsibility. And probably the biggest mistake that an individual can make when it comes to ethics is you simply don't use them. What is the good of having a standard, a personal standard of what you're willing to tolerate, what you're willing to do to others, how far you're willing to go, the lines you're willing to cross, if you don't actually do so? Might as well not have it at all, right? So the biggest mistake a lot of individuals make is they don't put in ethics. And then the next thing you know, the wolves are chomping at the doors, people are stealing your things, they're running all over you, they're stepping on your back. You're getting called up to a committee of evidence and then later a court of ethics, and they're saying, you're an SP, you've been declared because we don't like you. No data, no evidence, procedures weren't followed. But why is that? Because at every step of the way, the individual didn't say, hey, no, fuck this, fuck you, you're going to do this. Or drag me out of here on a fucking stretcher because you know it's right. I know it's damn well right, and it was written by Hubbard. But not many people have that type of strength and fortitude, so therefore they get rolled over on. And if you don't believe me, the funny thing about that is, what most individuals don't know is I'm not a declared individual. I've never been declared by the Church of Scientology. I've never been declared as an SP or otherwise. It's never been written. It's never been stated. Why? Because I know ethics. And why? I put them in. If that line were ever crossed, I'd do so. And I know how to do so properly. So again, to get back to this, the most fundamental flaw that we can make when it comes to the subject of ethics is not understanding them, and B, not putting them in. Okay? And that is the individual's responsibility, ladies and gentlemen. That's your responsibility, and it's my individual responsibility. So that being said, another issue is the same way that there should probably be two statements made here, that you could never, under any circumstance, enforce ethics on a person. And two, the statement that has always been said by me, and that is ethics were created to get tech in. Okay? Not to get admin in. Ethics weren't created to make statistics go up. Ethics were not created, okay? Ethics were never created to sell materials. Ethics were not created to do promotion, okay? Ethics were not created to make sure somebody's selling a certain number of auditing hours. They were not created to reg somebody, okay? That is all, that information there, ladies and gentlemen, is found in the OEC. That's what the admin tech is for, not ethics. And a person's statistics do not always indicate, actually, a person's statistics will rarely indicate an out ethics situation. So therefore, the ethics formulas that you find here, okay, are not designed because somebody's statistics are down. Yes, you keep statistics, right? But you keep statistics. Statistics are only used to match your individual ethics formulas. And what you're doing internally for yourself, what you feel you're doing right or wrong to have your stats come up, right? And stats is what, along with the other side of the coin here, the ethics formulas. You do an ethics formula, you monitor it by stat, and that keeps us producing an ethically sound. Okay? That doesn't necessarily reflect, right, a drop or an out ethics situation. That's not an out ethics situation. Okay? When we talk about out ethics situations or crimes and high crimes, errors, misdemeanors, all that, no, those are not necessarily or rarely out ethics situations. They're errors and misdemeanors. But when it comes to actual crimes, which I'll read here in a minute, when you have crimes and or high crimes, okay, those can be considered to be a real out ethics situation, okay? Now, the reason I say this is there's always a witch hunt, it would appear, and from the data that I've gotten, with an organizational structure that, well, if this guy's stats are not up, take his head off, and there's this big old witch hunt. Oh, make him do ethics formulas because his stats are down. But nobody ever stops to consider, okay, this guy's stats are low because somebody else did something, or, you know what? People just simply didn't fucking walk in off the street that week. And there's absolutely nothing this fellow can do, right, to change that. He can be on post, do everything standard and pitch perfect. It's not going to change the fact no public came in off the street. And it's asinine to think that's going to change. Okay? What is important is these individuals, right, are doing everything within their own ethical power to uphold their own individual post. That means you're auditing to the best of your ability. You're on course to the best of your ability. You're working on staff and holding your post to the best of your ability. That is simply all that means. And stats do not necessarily, again, indicate an out ethics situation. Yes, they can, but that is usually over an extended period of time, of at a minimum 60 to 90 days. Okay, if their stats are down 3 months in a row, maybe that's something you should start looking at. Okay, but if their stats are relatively decent for that time period, good. They're doing their posts and they're doing it reasonably well. Because there's so many other factors there. They could be new, they could be fresh. It may take them the time to learn at a gradient and get used to their own individual posts. So you cannot necessarily enforce that on people. So, again, ladies and gentlemen, to correct an out ethics situation, it's not enforced. That means you never use ethics formulas or any other technology, okay, to correct an out ethics situation. Period. You say, oh, wait. You do not audit somebody out of an out ethics situation. You do not make them do ethics formulas to get them out of an out ethics situation. Period. It's not what they're used for. Okay? And what do I mean by an out ethics situation? Again, a crime or a high crime. Once a person's got to that point, no amount of auditing is going to fix it. They're either a potential trouble source or beyond. So you do not do ethics formulas. Okay? You do not audit them. Rarely, maybe you can pull the overt and withhold. Rarely. But my point is you do not enforce that on them. If the person has a problem and there's an out ethics situation and they're up to it and they said, hey man, I need to get into session. I need to get this thing resolved. Maybe you can check, you can pull overts, withholds, or something that they're continuously doing, or do a PTS handling. Then you use technology, but you do not enforce the technology on somebody to remedy an ethics condition. It is not done, ladies and gentlemen, ever, under any circumstances. A person should be shot in the fucking head if they even attempt it, try, or consider doing it. It's a complete misapplication of the technology. Okay? justice, the justice portion of ethics, is what is used to remedy those situations. And again, ladies and gentlemen, I'll go ahead and just reference the book here, so we have a bit of a cross-selection of what a person can expect as far as ethics are concerned. Now, there's usually 4 sets of ethics, or excuse me, where are we at here? Oh, yes. There's 4 areas as far as when it comes to, ethics or penalties and things that somebody can do wrong. Now, they can be simple errors, you have misdemeanors, and then again, you have crimes and high crimes. Now, crimes enter in at the level of what we would naturally consider to be a crime, even in society. Rape, murder, arson, fucking mayhem, grand theft auto, all of which I'm not fond of. Those are crimes, ladies and gentlemen. They enter in at the level of where there would be a criminal penalty for them. So as you can see here, there's 4, and then there's high crimes. Now, high crimes are beyond like a crime. They're not only a crime, but they're a specific crime to Scientology itself. Unless you get high crime, basically. Now, errors and misdemeanors are just, flubs, mistakes, and, things people may or may not do that can be swept under the rug, dealt with, handled, without using the justice procedures of ethics, okay? Now, misdemeanors are things like, or errors, are unintentional admissions, mistakes, little goofs, minor alter-is of tech policies, small instruction mistakes, just, little things like that. Oh, it slipped my mind type of thing, okay? Misdemeanors, non-compliance, discourtesy, and insubordination. Mistakes resulting in financial traffic loss, waste of org material, waste of funds, refusing an e-meter check, refusing auditing when ordered by a higher authority. Okay. Discovery of their having an undisclosed criminal background in this lifetime, disrupting a meeting. So as you can see, these mostly pertain to Scientology as well, but these are just, misdemeanors, okay? Now, when we actually get here to, where's the good stuff? Oh yeah, got the good stuff here. Now this is theft, mayhem, harmful, flagrant, and continued code breaks resulting in important upsets. Non-compliance with urgent and vital orders resulting in public disrepute. Placing Scientology or Scientologists at risk. That doesn't sound like a lot of fun. Failure or refusal to acknowledge, relay, or execute a direct legal order from an international board member or an assistant board member. All right. Now, I'm sure you get the picture. Now, again, those are crimes. They're crimes that could be considered to be crimes in society as well as Scientology. All right. Now, high crimes. These consist of publicly departing Scientology or committing suppressive acts. Cancellation of certificates, classifications, and awards are amongst the penalties which can be leveled for this type of offense, as well as those recommended by committees of evidence. Now, hold on, ladies and gentlemen. Well, actually, let me read this whole entire paragraph here. Now, this is the last paragraph that you will find in this book under the chapter Offenses and Penalties, ladies and gentlemen. Okay? Offenses and Penalties chapter, an introduction to Scientology ethics. This here, ladies and gentlemen, will clarify the whole entire subject of ethics for you. Okay? Or this is, actually the last 4 or so paragraphs here. But it says, crimes are punished by convening courts of ethics. Okay? Or committees of evidence, and may not be handled by direct discipline. Okay? It's very important. This means a committee of evidence is convened. They get evidence. It goes to a court of ethics. You have 3 people on a panel. They handle the whole justice action. They make the recommendation. It's done. You do not, and again here it says, and may not be handled by direct discipline. That means you do not discipline anybody for a high crime. You, staff, superiors, they are not disciplined until the gradient of ethics is put in, and I'll read that here in a minute. Until the gradient of ethics is put in, a committee of evidence is called. Now, the committee of evidence's job is to collect evidence on what the individual may or may not have done, which then can lead into a convening of a court of ethics. Okay, and the court of ethics can make a final decision about actually canceling somebody's certificates. But hold on a minute. Crimes may result in suspension of certificates, classifications, or awards, reduction of post, or even dismissal or arrest when the crime clearly warrants it. But such penalties may not be assigned by direct discipline. Direct discipline means cutting out the committee of evidence and the court of ethics. Discipline cannot be handed down direct, okay? Certificates, classifications, or awards may not be canceled for a crime. That means they may or may not be canceled for a crime. High crimes, these consist of publicly departing Scientology or committing suppressive acts. Okay, so you leave or you commit a suppressive act. Cancellation of certificates, classifications, and awards are amongst the penalties which can be leveled for this type of offense, as well as those recommended by committees of evidence. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That means the only way you can have your certificates revoked, the only way you can have your classifications revoked, all right, is leaving Scientology or fucking committing a suppressive act. That's it, that's all. Everything else is fucking irrelevant. A crime, if it warrants it, yes. But somebody could commit murder outside of Scientology, and if it was justified, fine. If it's something that's confidential between a parishioner and their auditor, it is what it is. Because a person committed murder sometime in the past because they were defending themselves or their family or loved one, that does not necessarily mean it is an ethics situation. That does not label or make a person suppressive in and of itself. We are in the business of dealing with insanity and aberration. How many people do you honestly think we come across in the course of our work that have committed crimes, and how many do you think they've gotten away with? And I'm not talking about speeding tickets and everything else. A whole bunch, ladies and gentlemen. We're in the business of trying to rehabilitate people's spiritual well-being, right? In their life, and their mind, and their sanity. If that's the case, we might as well just declare everyone an SP and then just be done with it. Because that's going to be about 80% of what you run into. Joe Smith on the street, who liked to scrap when he was younger, and some poor guy fell over, bumped his head, and died, but nobody ever talked about it, okay? We don't cart the guy off and say, ethics, ethics. Oh, no, you can't be here. You can't contribute. You can't be a part of this. Oh, it's terrible. We're going to go, oh, no. Get out of here. Get him out of here. You're not allowed here. That's direct discipline being handed down without a committee of evidence. If it's that serious, have a committee of evidence convened. They collect data, come back and say, hey, look, this guy scrapped with some guy on the street. Unfortunately, the guy died, but that's it. That's the evidence we got. Goes to a committee of evidence. Committee of evidence, hey, this doesn't make this guy a suppressive person. It's not a suppressive act. It was a crime under the law, possibly, but if he's never been arrested, we're not law enforcement, ladies and gentlemen. That has no fucking bearing whatsoever on Dianetics or Scientology. If the person is now of sound mind, they contribute, they do everything else, and they're willing to be audited, then they're welcome just as anyone else would be. We all have our demons and our things in our closets, so again, pretty much the only thing that somebody has their certs and their classifications revoked for, okay, is high crimes, which are suppressive acts, period. I'm not going to read the whole list of suppressive acts. You can look into that yourself. But before I close with this, ladies and gentlemen, there is the gradient here as far as ethics actions are concerned. And again, I'll just read it briefly if I can find it here. And that will be, ladies and gentlemen, actually, ladies and gentlemen, I have difficulty finding this at the moment. So anyway, I'll just give a small synopsis of that. There's about 32 steps, and it says the gradient, or at which we put in ethics, okay? It starts with a light touch. Then you say, hey, there's something wrong here. Then you say something derogatory to another person about this person, like, hey, Joe's no good. Then you finally say, hey, Joe, you're no fucking good. Okay? And what we're doing here is establishing, like, oh, this is... What this does, this gets Joe to look, oh, there's people calling me a piece of shit. There's people talking about me saying I'm no good. Maybe I should look at, what I'm doing wrong. See, we're not telling Joe you're wrong. We say, I think you're a piece of shit. Oh, why would I ever think that? Well, you're auditing people and you're ripping them off for money. So get somebody to take an internal look at just what the hell they are doing. So Joe doesn't, of course, do that. Now a supervisor comes by and says, you know what, Joe? You got to start looking at what you're doing here, man. The rumor is, ethics is going to go in on you. That doesn't work. And you say, formally, look, they're going to do this might lead to an ethics investigation, formally, which eventually leads to a committee of evidence. And he's taken up to a court of ethics. All the way down the line, worst case scenario. Okay? He's declared an SP. Everything's revoked. Worst case scenario, he's discommunicated. He's no longer allowed to have services. So you start with the light touch, go all the way up, committee of evidence, which is an impartial group of people or an individual to collect evidence, usually 2 or 3, then up to a committee of evidence, a court of ethics, which passes down judgment based upon the reports of the committee of evidence. Up to having it revoked with maybe the potential of taking corrective measure. If not, they're just excommunicated completely and declared a suppressive person. You do not cut out any of those steps. And again, the chapter on that is here. I believe it's 32 or 33 little gradients there of things you do from a light touch onwards, like I just explained, of how you put in ethics on individuals. So again, ladies and gentlemen, to tie this all up, that's the synopsis on ethics. You never, under any circumstance, try to enforce ethics upon a person. Ethics are created to get technology in. It's there so people can be audited. That's it, that's all. And what that means is, right, ethics, the ethics formulas, etc., are there to where someone can be ethical, producing, and be in a position to be processed. That's all. Ethics are never used, auditing is never used to handle a crime or a high crime above that. Okay? That means you never audit anyone for a crime or a high crime. You do not put somebody into session, beat them over the head, and try to pull overts and withholds, do confessionals, any of it. Ladies and gentlemen, that is all handled on grade 2. Okay? Once it's handled, it's handled. It's asinine to think that that's handled on grade 2 and that people are going to keep stacking up overts and withholds when it's handled on a whole entire Scientology grade. Okay? So you do not put somebody into session to handle an out ethics situation. An out ethics situation to where you start putting in this ethics gradient, as I described earlier, from the light touch to the excommunication from the church. That only applies to a crime and a high crime above that. Really. unless somebody's just done so many flops, errors, and misdemeanors, and have been told so many damn times that the only conclusion to draw is they are an ASP, or they're continuing to then commit innumerable amounts of misdemeanors that pretty much amount to a crime anyway, then maybe it applies. And the only other time you do handle somebody or try to handle ethics in session is if the PC or the person originates that. You don't enforce it again, ladies and gentlemen. So if they come to you and say, I want to put some money down, or look, I'm having this difficulty. Look, I know it's out ethics, but I don't know if I'm PTS or what, or I have some overts or withholds I may not know about, but hey, man, I'm here. I'm willing to do what it takes. Okay, then you can put them into session. But you never do it on an enforced basis, is my point. So again, never enforce ethics under any circumstances. Ethics are created to get technology in. Okay? And you put in ethics at a light touch, from a light touch, all the way up through Committee of Evidence, Court of Ethics, to excommunication. You follow that gradient at all times. You don't take any of the steps out. Say, I'm going to cut out a Committee of Evidence and write you an order that says you're declared. Me, as your auditor, I'm going to write a report that says my own PC is declared without a Committee of Evidence or a Court of Ethics. That shit doesn't even happen on the backside of Mars. So you do not cut out these steps. You follow the full gradient there if you're going to put in ethics. Okay? And you can only revoke somebody's certs, classifications, after having gone through a Committee of Evidence and a Court of Ethics, and upon the Court of Ethics recommendation, they've been declared a suppressive person. Then, depending on the recommendation, whether or not they've been declared an ASP, it could be handled based upon a certain set of factors at a later date if they make the necessary corrections, or they're excommunicated. Those are the only two choices a Court of Ethics can make for a suppressive act or a high crime. And with those principles, ladies and gentlemen, you have the full body of ethics and technology. Now, you can go through the book and read it and kind of match that to your reality. But believe me, ladies and gentlemen, those are the only principles that apply and actually describe the whole entire scene as far as ethics are concerned, or ethics technology. So again, ladies and gentlemen, that is a synopsis and a brief discussion I wanted to have on ethics, ethics and justice and their proper application thereof. And I think I've done a reasonable job of doing that and not running on and being too long-winded about it. I'll go ahead and leave off there. But if you put in those principles, you can never go wrong. And of course, the last and most important thing to remember is ethics are your own individual responsibility. If you don't put them in, you do not benefit from the protections of ethics. To be protected by ethics, you have to apply to and put that scene in, or put that technology into use. If you don't, you're not protected by ethics. So if you follow that one keynote and that rule there, you can never be wrong and you will never be subjected to an out ethics type of situation. With that said, ladies and gentlemen, as always, have an incredible evening or morning, wherever it is in your part of the world. You can visit the website at lronhubbardrising.com. You can also contact me personally via email at thetastatic20@gmail.com. That is my PayPal address as well. If anybody likes to make donations or reoccurring donations to help me continue what I'm doing here and get this all off the ground again for us. And with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I'll talk to you again soon, and I wish you well.